Hello! Here we are, back here, talking about the Book of Boba Fett, Chapter 2.
Why'd you turn to Christopher Walken?
I don't know. I'm Christopher Walken.
Did Christopher unofficially play one of the Hutts?
Yeah, unintentionally. But welcome, everybody. We're here, and we're going to be talking about, you know what? Boba Fett, Chapter 2. Jackson, how are you feeling?
I'm chilling.
Just
I'm
chilling.
hanging out. Yeah, well, I mean, I'm on day 6 of quarantine with COVID, so I have done nothing but played Halo.
Yeah.
And I did watch Return of the Jedi. Oh, well, I had my birthday 2 days ago. I turned 23.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Do you feel 23?
No, honestly, because every time I hear it, I'm like, oh yeah, I am 23. Yeah. So, but yeah.
I turned 24 a month from tomorrow.
Happy early birthday! I'll tell you again when we get there close.
Yeah.
So yeah, I did that. I watched Return of the Jedi for my birthday, and
oh, very nice. Favorite Star Wars movie?
Yeah. Just was felt it was right, and yeah, no, it was all right. It's been chilling. I've been hanging out, doing a lot.
Did you have a very happy New Year?
I spent it also in quarantine.
There you go.
We tested positive on New Year's Eve, so we were just like, nice. Well, I guess that's what we're doing for New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we had a very quiet New Year's as well. We had like 3 people over and like went to like a wine bar, but we were like outside away from everybody because like that's man cool. that Omicron going cray right now.
It is going cray right now. Yes, please.
But I think it's time to get into this episode here. Which man, this episode blew me away. I was not expecting to be as entertained and just my eyes were glued to the screen the entire time.
The second it started, yeah.
I loved it. But kind of let's just get into it here. What are kind of some of your overall thoughts as a whole for the episode?
So I guess for me, I walked into the episode already kind of hearing that it was really good. It was really good. And I was like, okay, well, then it must have taken some direction, doing something.
I was like, oh, did like Han Solo pop in?
Well, it was like, oh, maybe like, cool action sequence happened, or, they expanded more on the plot, and the plot ends up kind of being cool with whatever it does. And sure enough, yeah, the plot was really cool in what it did. And I guess, the spoiler alert right away, which if you're here, you must have seen it. You should have seen it. If you haven't, you should go see it. But
why are you watching this? If you
that's what I'm saying. It's like, why are you here? When the Hutts showed up, I audibly I gasped out. I was like, oh, I was like, uh-oh. I was like,
well, yeah, we were watching it and Emma was like, is that? I was like, no, it's not Jabba the Hutt.
It's not. I thought that was really cool, and it raised some questions to me right away, but we'll get into it later. But I like paused it to go to the restroom or something, and I looked and it was only like 14 minutes in, and I was like, oh, what else is gonna happen? And I absolutely thoroughly enjoyed the episode as it was, and the stories that it told. And I love knowing more about this Tusken tribe and learning with them. And I think for me, it was different that the whole episode was really about this flashback. But the first like 14 minutes, they were just like, oh yeah, by the way, this is what's going to happen with this. And
yeah, I was expecting it to be another kind of the same vibe as the first episode, where it's just like
back and forth.
He's like back in like Mos Espa, and like it's like a little tussle with the mayor and that kind of thing. But I really liked the direction it went. Like once we got over the beginning stuff, and we got to see our boy Max Rebo again.
Yeah, I cheered.
And then we get to learn about this the Nightwind guy. What is with this Nightwind thing.
I guess I just took it as like they made me think of the Dark Brotherhood from Skyrim. You know, just
I don't know
like
Skyrim.
all right, they're just like they're like a league of assassins.
Gotcha. Okay.
They're like the Foot Clan from Ninja Turtles.
Oh, wonderful.
They're just like these assassins that are for hire, and that's kind of how I took it. So I think if they come back more, they'll play into something of maybe like, you know, into that. But as for what I took it at face value, they are just a group that was hired to. So my question is, what did you think the mayor was doing?
Yeah, I don't know.
I think it's reverse psychology, and it's trying to. The mayor is like redirecting what Boba did to make it look like Boba is actually a powerhouse to be handled. But I guess my question is that the mayor probably actually works for the Hutts. So I expect like a double cross. But I guess what I took it was like, because the mayor's like, thank you for stopping this assassin. Like, here, like, we will handle it. And like, kind of takes it as like a token of gratitude. And I think that's more of the sense of now the mayor is like, you did this for me. You did this for me. And that I, in return, will help you with whatever your crime lordiness that you want, because no one's taking Boba seriously.
Yeah, and I think it might not be that the mayor is working for the Hutts, but I think the mayor's loyalties are still with the Hutts. And I think that's what I think the mayor is very much messing with Boba and like trying to make him think that that they're on his side.
That's
and they're gonna end up turning on him for sure.
So here's the question I had when I was watching it was, did the twin Hutts establish Bib Fortuna? Like, did they like
the assistant and
Jabba dies and they go, hey, you clean up the mess, and if you do well, we'll keep it. And maybe it worked, and Bib ends up staying for a couple years until Boba kills him. And now they're like, well, I guess now we finally have to step in and deal with whatever, Jabba left behind. Oh, my mic just fell. I'm so sorry.
There it goes. I think these Hutts are going to be. I can already sense myself getting annoyed with them, but not in the way that I'm annoyed with them as a character, but just like they're doing things to Boba.
They're just poking with them. Yeah,
and you just want the plot to happen, but it's just like, oh, these stupid Hutts.
Yeah. I thought it was so cool seeing Hutts in live action. Hutts in live action again. I know they didn't do any puppets; it was just CG things. But
it looked the
great.
Best that Hutts have ever looked.
I just am glad that like we are in live action times and we're seeing Hutts again, and I'm glad we're seeing Hutts that aren't Jabba. I love seeing that. I'm glad we're expanding.
Is Zero the Hutt still alive?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
The rightful heir. Where is he?
Yeah, and then it's kind of jarring, like how quickly we cut back to Boba's lair back in the Bacta tank, and we get this flashback. And this is when the episode really takes off, is in this kind of flashback where he, is with these Tusken Raiders, and this big train thing shows up, and all that kind of fun stuff. I was so surprised at how well this episode enriches the lore of the Tusken Raiders and like their culture, and like there's so much we learn about the Tusken Raiders in this episode, which I really appreciate, and like it gives me a new appreciation for that. Like they're not just like these mindless beings on Tatooine that are like aggressive for no reason.
They're really expanding on the community aspect of that.
And they're really protective over their land. It's like they're like the natives of Tatooine essentially. Which is super cool to see that portrayed. But what did you think about this whole latter 3/4 of this episode?
I loved the kind of just little self-contained story it was. And what I think the big thing is that already we have seen that Boba has learned the respect that he wants to try to achieve with Jabba's power and whatever. I think with this is we really got to see Boba learn properness and very strong leadership skills. And by the end of the episode, there's Tuskens like serving him water as he's doing things. And
I think when we were watching this, I heard Emma say, like, I've never seen Boba be like this compassionate towards things.
And I think it's that he's really kind of learned, like, to them in this current moment, they are his family, and I love what it's teaching him, the things that it's kind of showing. And
and he's really you can really see him taking a chance to like value life.
Yes, with everybody,
and like the amount of respect I'm sure that he gains just for a life in this show. I've noticed in the last episode and this episode, which is I'm really glad we're seeing Boba kind of develop in this show.
Yeah,
and he's not just this cool looking bounty hunter who does cool action stuff. Like that's what I was worried the show would be, that we're just getting really cool action pieces and nothing else. But I'm really glad that we're getting these moments and like putting Boba through his experiences.
We're learning something.
Where he's learning something. Yeah. Or he's, he has to overcome a lot of things. And I think that is what this show really needed.
So allow me to kind of jump ahead and just, I want to talk about this piece, but we're on the topic of learning. What do you think the dream was about? The acid trip?
Yeah, I don't.
The lizard trip. I'm glad that we're doing peyote in the desert again. That's what real Star Wars is about.
I know, right? I'm not really. So at first, I wasn't sure what was going on, and like once the lizard went into his,
I know. I
was
brain, like,
I was like, oh, ew, what's going on?
I think I swallowed it. I'm so sorry.
Yeah. I think a lot of that was a way to show, like, I think what it is, it almost feels like an initiation for the Tusken tribe, because like you go to this, it takes you to this big tree, and like you break a branch off of it and you bring it back to them, and they kind of like show you how to make the gaffy stick and that kind of thing, which I thought was really cool. How there's like this sentimental attachment and meaning behind the gaffy stick for each of them. I
absolutely loved that the Gaddafi stick that he has is like for him, because I kept thinking the Tusken female who was training him, I kept thinking she was going to give him the staff that she has. Maybe she was going to die or something. I kept thinking that was going to happen. I love that instead he made one for himself.
Yeah, I love that. And I think when it comes to that acid trip sequence, I'm wondering if maybe like we're just seeing significant moments in his life that have like brought him to this, because like he survived, because like we get parts from the Sarlacc pit. We see him as a kid with Jango leaving in the Slave One. We see all these like significant like highlights, like core memories in his life up to now, and I'm wondering what the significance will be going forward in this show with his past and that kind of thing. Like how much more they're going to address it, because at this point we are almost to where we met him in The Mandalorian, in the flashbacks. So I'm wondering if we'll ever go even further back.
Well, he's got like another
few years, right?
Like I would say like 3-4 years. Yeah,
because so has it been established if he came out of the Sarlacc pit like immediately after?
I would assume within the 48 hours after he fell.
Okay, so you think it was pretty instantaneous that happened? Because I was thinking like, yeah, I guess he wouldn't have been able to survive without like food or water in there for years or anything. So yeah, I don't. And then I saw one complaint. This isn't really the topic of the episode, of this episode, but I saw one complaint that someone was like, why didn't they de-age him? Because it's only supposed to be like, what, 20 something years after he's like a kid and he looks 50.
Yeah.
Which, whatever, fine. That's not a gripe that I have or something that I even think about. But let's kind of go back a little bit to this train heist sequence with, like, at first we get the train coming through, trying to take out all these Tusken Raiders, and Boba says that he's going to stop the train and keep it off of their land, and he does this by going to like this dive bar with like those long bikes, and like fights off a bunch of these Nikto. What did you think about that sequence? Because I have a little bit of a qualm with that sequence, but what did you think about?
What's your qualm? Let me hear your qualm.
I didn't like the two people that were at the bar. They didn't feel Star Wars to me.
It's not right, or what did he say?
They didn't. The guy, his performance, what he looked like with like a leather jacket thing, he just didn't look like a Star Wars character to me. Yeah. That took me out of it a little bit.
I didn't really think much of this scene, period. I thought the fight was fine, but like, I don't know. I was like,
it was just an action piece to get the bikes. That's what it really was.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I didn't think much more or less of it as that.
Which I enjoyed it because it makes it feel like, we got a Star Wars bar fight. Essentially.
Yeah, for sure. Bar fight. For sure. It was cool.
And it was cool to see some more live action Niktos. I always think about Rin Riven Die from Bloodline whenever we see Niktos in any capacity, just because he's such a good character in Bloodline. But kind of getting back on topic, when they come back, and this is where I think we see his growth as a character with the Tusken Raiders, where he's like kind of teaching them how to get on the bike and like how to go with
Bantha, like Bantha is the new
like Bantha. I thought all that stuff was great and it was adorable. What did you think about the whole sequence?
I love that they showed and expressed like Boba with each of the different Tuskens. Like he had a part with every one of them. It wasn't just the chief and the warrior that he was tight with. It was the kid, and it was here and there, and teaching each one how to properly fight and watch themselves. And I love his kind of little mini purpose of he believes that like Tuskens deserve like a say in what happens on
they deserve respect. And I think
absolutely,
because I think this has a lot to do with Boba's core kind of meaning in this show right now has been learning respect in several ways: respect for life, respect for other people, and just doing things in a way that makes like moral sense.
So I'm really glad you brought this up, because this is why I asked you, what did you think about the dream? Is that my interpretation of the dream is that Boba is in the moment of when he did it, was that he is locked in with the kind of restraints and ties of living up to his father's name. He's kind of, for the last 20 years been hell-bent on representing his father's armor and being kind of, the lone badass who, was this grand bounty hunter, because that's what his dad was like. And that's why I think we keep getting the flashbacks of Geonosis and Camino, is that it's the helmet to him. Is what does the helmet mean? And to him, it's family. So what does that mean to him? And I think Boba spent most of his time in a sense of revenge for his father's legacy.
Yeah.
When in the way that he wants to be able to honor it, he needs to make a name for himself. And while he's understanding that, he is learning what respect it does to people, and how these Tuskens are teaching him how you don't have to kill and blow everything up to get what you want. And if you want to really change something about it, you can do it with this thing, respect. And Boba's
which I think he is also, sorry to cut you off.
no, you're good. Go ahead.
But which I think he is also teaching that to the Tuskens as well.
Yes.
Because they've always been so, like, as soon as they see anything on their land, they point their
freak
guns
out.
and
Yeah,
they're ready to kill.
Yeah.
And I think they're teaching each other these lessons, which I think is such great writing so far in this episode.
Just incredible themes of just civility and I mean, respect is kind of the whole show, but like I think this episode really taught a lot about being civil and where it can take you. You know, is that you don't have to take, you don't need power to take control.
Yeah, and the very obvious parallels of, you know, being natives to a land and having that land kind of trampled on and
used and
taken away, and like no one really understands or respects your culture's traditions, and you know you're just kind of seen as like this, outsider
in your own realm.
Like I said earlier, like a lot of people just see the Tusken Raiders as like these mindless beings on Tatooine, which is why I'm so glad that they're taking the time to really explore the Tusken Raiders and like their lore.
Yes.
It's just so wholesome. I didn't expect this show to be so wholesome, like this episode to be so wholesome. Like, with Tusken Raiders too, I was like, man. And then let's get to the train heist portion, because I thought this also had a lot of moments with Boba where I was like, why are you saving that guy? Just go get the ship down. Like get the train down. Why are you saving that guy? And I was like, Braydon, this is the point. That's the point he's trying to make.
We got to make everybody walk out.
We're saving everybody. Like, yeah. I thought this whole sequence was great, and I think I love a good train sequence, and I love a good Star Wars train heist sequence.
Yeah.
What did you think about the train heist?
I thought it was good action bits. I like I'm trying to think as they go along. You know, like a train top fight is always a good bit of fun. And I think the shot that made me chuckle was when the warrior Tusken like popped up from the other side while they were taking cover from the bad guys and just kind of looked at him, and it was like, hey. Yeah, that one was fun. No, I thought it was cool. I was like, well, when she crashed the speeder into the train and it didn't really do anything, and I was just like, oh, okay, well.
It's just so funny because like all of these Tuskens were like they're so like clueless at what like how to do this kind of thing.
Having to dodge and weave bullets and
I love the training sequence with Boba and them, like they're all on their little long bikes and like the guys are trying to like practice hopping from one bike onto Boba and like they kept messing up. That was really funny. There was like this had the perfect balance of like comedy, wholesomeness, heartfelt emotion, all that kind of fun stuff. And then what do you think about, so who are these guys that had the train and they're trying to clear their path, as they were saying?
They were pikes, right?
Were they?
Yeah, those were pikes with they wear like the mask like that, but
that's right.
It's the big pikes that have like they're like the grand ones. But
I'm used to the pikes from Clone Wars.
Yeah, those are very different from what live action pikes have always been. And I don't know why, but so I just took it as this group of pikes had a good route that they were trying to protect. You know, I took it as like it's just like a lore thing where it's like, oh yeah, like the sands of Tatooine, they're so dangerous that like, you know, Like here on your left is Mos Espa, like this crazy space station city that's got crime riddled throughout all the day. There's giant slugs that they carry through the street. And over here is the Dune Sea that's owned to the ancient Tusken Raiders. That these guys are a crime syndicate that have a train that they like to shoot out the windows of.
Yeah. For a second there, I was like, this isn't Crimson Dawn, is it? It's not.
I'm waiting for him.
Dawn.
I'm waiting for him.
I was like, is Jackson right?
I think because since the Hutts are now involved, I bet you Crimson. I think
Crimson Dawn is bound to get involved if all these crime syndicates are getting in there.
Yeah.
I'm
excited.
And then I thought it was really great how after this whole thing, and like instead of Boba just killing them, the head pike is like, what are you going to do now? Kill us? He's like, well, it depends on how you answer my next question. And he's like, are you hoarding spice?
Yeah.
On this train? It's like, what do you mean by spice? That was great. I love that whole interaction.
I love the only mention of where he tells them you're gonna walk in single file. I was kind of waiting for him to be like, why single file?
Yeah. And he was like, we'll die out here. We're gonna get attacked. He's like, no, we'll have an escort for you, but we're not gonna have any water. Oh, we'll make sure you guys have water.
Sure, yeah, you guys do what you need.
Yeah, which was another thing, and I was like, I think a pre-Sarlacc Boba Fett would have just killed him.
Yeah, absolutely. Just would have shot him. Yeah,
he would have just killed them, took all their stuff.
Second he said, "What is spice?" he would have shot him.
Yeah. So I think that really shows some really great character development for Boba, and then again we see kind of near the end here whenever he goes on this acid trip, goes to get his gaffy stick, and the sequence where they build the gaffy stick.
The robe
you see him
ceremony.
Like chopping away on it, the robe ceremony.
Beautiful.
And, dude, this is one of my favorite ending scenes to any Star Wars TV. Is just the big like rain dance they're doing around the fire.
Yeah, so wholesome.
That was the coolest thing. And like I think in any other medium, like if that was like the ending to a movie or something, that would be kind of a cringy, weird ending. But it felt just right.
Yeah, like I learned something from this episode, and I'm glad that like it ends on. I'm glad that this episode ends on like its own note, where they didn't need to. You know what? I bet you that just answered my question of why show the first 14 minutes with the Hutts. Is that's the only piece of the story that you needed. The rest of this episode is its own contained story.
Yeah, and I think you're right in the sense that you said like the first half of this season is going to be kind of catching up as from like the Sarlacc pit getting out up until where we meet him.
Yeah.
I think that you're right that the next episode is going to be the last episode that we get like these flashbacks. I think we're going to get more.
I think if we get more, it'll lead up all the way to when Boba found Fennec.
Yeah.
We go to that post-credit scene from Mando, remember?
Yeah. Yep.
The first Boba appearance.
I remember that. And then like they never showed him again in season 1.
And everyone was like, oh, it's Cad Bane. Oh, it's this person, this person. And
I think how cool would it be to get a live action Cad Bane in this show?
People think that he might show up in this.
I think it'd be cool, dude.
I think it would be really cool, especially having him in Bad Batch too. Bad Batch enough when it was like, oh, I was like, that was rad as hell.
Yeah.
Like, I want more of that.
But kind of wrapping it up a little bit here, overall, do you like this episode more or less than last week's episode?
I must admit, I think episode 1 was not a letdown, but just kind of mundane in the sense of
it was weird.
It was a weird
purpose
start.
of introduction to the show.
And this already took that cake, and I wholeheartedly think that they are going to they're gonna keep going farther. So I think after this episode alone is like, to me, this is a 9 out of 10, and I think that they're just gonna keep topping themselves better.
Well, Robert Rodriguez did say that this show will surpass expectations, so which is good because
that's gonna be rad.
As our boy RFB would say, I set my expects down for this show. But one thing that I think we did forget to mention was in that scene towards the beginning with the Hutt twins. We got a little friend, the little Wookiee guy.
Oh yeah,
the new the emo Wookiee, if you will. I believe this Wookiee's name is
Black
Chrysanthemum.
Santy they call him.
But yeah, he shows up in the comics, and apparently
He was
know that.
Yeah, I learned that today as well because he's part of more like Star Wars adventures, which I don't read those lines.
Yeah, and Dr. Aphra too.
Dr. Aphra, but he's a Hutt bounty hunter. He's a Hutt. He worked with Jabba a bunch, so I bet you he ended up going to work with the twins. And so here, let's talk about that for just a second.
Yeah.
What do you think? Are these the only other Hutts in power? Is there going to be, they talked about, go back to Nal Hutta. Like, is there going to be, maybe the Hutt Council will get involved? And
I think it'd be cool to see that kind of stuff because we only really know the Hutts from like some small stuff in like Clone Wars. And
like I said this to my girlfriend was that, in any Star Wars media, the Hutts are always have been known to be a crime family and the syndicate. So I guess the question is how powerful are they right now? And what does that mean for Boba?
I think the Hutt syndicate took a big hit when Jabba died.
Really?
I think so. And that's why they're coming back to like take
making sure that this is yeah.
And I think the Hutts are probably vulnerable, and they're probably making efforts to take over that part of Tatooine again. And that's going to be like a probably pretty big conflict of this show, I would imagine, because Bib Fortuna was in good with the Hutts and was on the Hutt side, and Boba is not. Yeah, I think going forward, we're going to see some. I would really like to see more Hutts show up, like just a big army of Hutts land at Boba Fett's door. That would be cool to see. Like,
cool. So, and we talked about Chrysanthemum. Do you think we will see other notable bounty hunters? Ooh, excuse me.
I want to see Chrysanthemum fist fight Chewbacca.
That'd be rad.
8 minutes in the octagon.
Who do you think of the Empire Strikes Back's teams coming back? IG-88 just got his own comic line, so I say him, Bosk, Dengar.
I think we're going to see Bosk in some form in either this show or one of these Star Wars things. I think we got to see Bosk live action sometime. And Dengar obviously would be really cool to see. No, go ahead.
I wonder if it's going to turn into kind of like a John Wick thing to where the Hutts essentially try to, quote, force Boba out, and they just keep sending bounty hunters after him. And each episode, he's got to fight something new while he's also like, what, guys? He's like, I'm just trying to do this the nice way. And they keep pushing his buttons about it.
Yeah, I'm glad this show isn't being formulaic like that. Only because that kind of formulaic storytelling is the same thing that happens with like The Mandalorian, where, at the beginning of the episode, he starts somewhere, gets a mission to go somewhere else. He gets there, does the thing, and then he leaves the planet. And like, it's like that for every episode. It's like every episode, it's like the same arc. It feels like
I gotta find more chalky milk for my green kid.
Yeah. Did you see that TikTok?
Yeah.
It's like every Mandalorian episode. So like that is again, it's one gripe I've always had with The Mandalorian. But I like this style of, we see Boba in the present day and like going through his conflicts there, and then we kind of bounce back a little bit and see where he's been. I think that is because there's so much story to tell and to get in these 8 episodes now? 9 episodes, yeah. So yeah, we get a lot of story to go. But one thing I wanted to ask you, and this is a thing that has been rumored, so possible spoiler / rumor for anybody who doesn't want to know anything that could possibly happen going forward. So just click away from the stream now. But do you think we will get a Harrison Ford Han Solo de-aged in this show at all? You think they're going to Luke Skywalker it from Mando Season 2? Because the reason why I asked is because apparently there were reports that Harrison Ford was on set at some point during the production.
If they were gonna bring Han in, I would rather them use Alden.
That's where my mind went to when I heard about this.
But you don't need Han, like Han. Like, why would Han introduce himself to this story? Like, it doesn't make sense to me.
Unless like they're somehow Han had to go back to Tatooine for whatever reason.
Well, you know what? There was a line that was said in this episode that I can't remember who said it, but someone said it's you gotta ask. It's like ask the right questions to take out a hut. Like you have to ask big people to take out a hut, and I took that as governments. The huts are such a big, aspect of the galaxy and their control influence a lot of the things that happen within the Outer Rim. They keep a maintain of order to it. I bet you with the New Republic being so fresh that if a hut was taken out, it would kind of stir and cause chaos. So I wonder if the question is Boba takes out a hut and then the New Republic has to step in and be like, hey, like, you can't be this big crime syndicate doing all this kind of stuff, and the person they send is Han Solo.
That would be cool. I mean, see, the only way that I'd be like, oh yes, they brought in Han is if they did it the right way.
Yeah, if they made it work some way, I would of course, accept it and love it for how it is. But if you don't need Han in this story, don't put Han in this story.
Yeah, I think that's why another reason why I love this episode much is because it didn't like the greatness of it didn't rely on an old favorite having to show back up and say hi, kind of like the season 2 finale for Mando. I really liked the fact that this episode just let itself breathe. It let itself be good. Let itself have all just these lessons.
Story, yeah.
Enrich the lore a little bit. We learned some more about these characters that we've known for 42 years or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh my God, 45 years now? 77, 45 years, dude.
Since A New Hope. I mean, with Boba, it's like.
Well, I mean, I'm talking like
just in general,
the legacy of the characters of the Tusken Raiders. Like,
oh yeah.
That is 45 years, man. That's crazy. But yeah, do you have any final thoughts or things we didn't catch whenever we were talking earlier?
I think my favorite joke in this episode was the Rancor bit. I love that.
Yeah. We didn't talk about that, did we?
Fennec is just kind of bloodthirsty. Like, just let me kill him. Let me kill him. Let me kill him. Like,
well, at first I was like, wait, did they get another Rancor?
I was like, well, I know. I was like, there's no way. I was like, Jabba never had time. Like,
yeah. I was like,
unless Bib did it, but I bet you Bib wouldn't want to.
It's a perfect tactic, though, to get that guy to talk.
I know, right?
Because he doesn't know they don't actually have a Rancor, I thought that part was really great. And it's a really great start to the episode as well.
When do you think we'll see a Rancor?
I think we're going to see it in this season.
I bet you in the next episode or two.
I don't know about the next episode or two, but sometime this season, I think we're going to see a Rancor.
I think the Hutts are going to start throwing stuff at Boba, and he's going to have to kind of adapt to it. I bet
they're going to send a Rancor to pay respect.
They're going to start with a Rancor, and Boba just tears it up, and then they'll send like Krasanston or whatever.
John Krasinski.
Her Santa Claus.
Yeah.
Her John Krasinski.
Like that? Yeah, I think overall this is one of my favorite episodes of live action Star Wars TV that I think we've ever gotten, in my opinion. And I'm very, very excited to see if this next episode, if we'll stay more in the present or if we're going to get another 45-minute flashback. which I don't hate. I won't be mad.
I bet you from now on it'll be kind of back and forth. I think this was the only episode that they were going to do its whole thing. But, you know, who knows? I could be wrong.
Yeah, I mean, a lot to still be discovered with this show. Yeah. And I'm very excited to see how it is moving forward. But I think that just about does it for us. We're about 40 minutes in there. I think that's just the perfect amount of time to get this kind of closed out here. If you'd like to find us on our social medias, as always, you can do that on our Instagram at Through Imperial Eyes Pod, Twitter Imperial Eyes Pod, and YouTube at Through Imperial Eyes Podcast. Just add the podcast, or else you'll get a bunch of suggestions for Star Wars Rebels episodes. Jackson, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Quackson Scalene. It's QUACKSON and scaling like the triangle. And then you can follow me on my photography Instagram, which is at Deleen_photography. It's DALEN_photography. Braydon, what about you?
And as always, you can find me on Instagram at braydonleadbetter and on Twitter at braydonleadbetter. And you can see what I'm watching, see what I'm reviewing on Letterboxd at @BLeadbetter, and see what I'm doing in the video world at Bet19 on YouTube. And please do not be shy. Leave that rating, leave that review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever else you got. It really helps out the show, and it lets us know that you like what we're doing. And that's really all that matters here, right? And then, yeah, make sure to stay tuned. If we do get some big news here in the next few days, we will be covering that. We haven't been doing the news episodes lately, just because a lot of it has been very Book of Boba Fett based, and we want to keep that discussion for these episodes. But if there is anything that you're like, oh my God, I really want to hear Braydon and Jackson talk about this, just shoot us a message. Be like, hey, can you cover this news story? We'll hop on and talk about it.
Ask us on Anchor about it.
Yeah, ask us on Anchor about it. We want to hear your little voice. Yeah. But I think until then, we will see you next week for some more Book of Boba Fett, and in case there's some great big news that drops. But until then, as always, may the Force be with you.